Hello, everybody. Welcome to our final seminar of the day. I would like to introduce our very last speaker of the day, DeAnna McIntosh, with the Executive Director at Diversify Retail, Inc. She will be discussing diversity in sourcing, certainly a very hot topic. Just really quick, before we start, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have a chat function here on Zoom, as well as our Facebook Live group. So if you have any questions that might arise along the presentation, please post them there and we will address them at the end of DeAnna's presentation. So without further ado, DeAnna, the virtual floor is yours, and I will be removing myself here and popping back in the end for Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day today. So excited to chat with you about diversity in sourcing. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, as Jason said, I'm the executive director at Diversify Retail, Inc., and we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing representation of minorities in the retail industry. And this organization really came about this summer after the killing of George Floyd and seeing all the surge of support for brands, specifically Black-owned brands. And what I personally saw was that there were a lot of big companies reaching out to brands, sending them terms like, please agree to 1, 2, 3, 4 terms via email so that I can announce you tomorrow. I think we all know that that's not how big companies work. It's a super long, tedious process to get into stores and to work with the buyers. And so, from the brand perspective, as a small brand, we know that there's so many things that you have to know before you actually get into a large retailer. So my first thought was, let me try to see how many brands I can get in contact with to be that buffer to make sure that the deals are genuine and authentic, right? So fast forward to today, we launched Diversify Retail Inc. a few weeks ago to be an even bigger force and make a bigger impact. And by that, a bigger impact on the entire retail industry. So, for example, we all know there's no diversity in the leadership teams at most retailers and brands. So, how do we fix that? Right? So, the pipeline problem, how do we fix that if that's a problem? We're aiming to fix that, which I'll talk to in a second. And also, when these brands do get deals with the big retailers, a lot of what happens is, great, I got this contract, but now I have to come up with thousands of units on my own dime until I get paid. So, how does that happen? It usually doesn't, because entrepreneurs of color are underfunded, way underfunded, right? So, that's an issue we're trying to solve. There's a lot we're trying to tackle, but we have to start somewhere. And that's what this conversation is about today. And again, feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. But I'll just chat first about my personal background in the retail industry, which is I am one of those weirdos one of the rare weirdos who actually love fashion, love retail, and has been in it since day one. I feel like most of us just fall into this industry, but I've been in love with it since middle school. So I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. So my degree is in international fashion merchandising management. And I studied abroad in Florence, Italy. That's the international part of my degree. So I definitely enjoy the fashion industry from an international perspective. After that, I was a buyer at Chico's in Fort Myers, Florida. Also spent time at Home Depot in logistics, Office Depot as a strategy manager, and a smaller company as a merchandise director. So I've seen the industry from several different angles. But one thing that has always been the case is that I was always one person of color or one Black person out of 40 buyers or 50 buyers. And then when I would go to trade shows, I'd usually be one person of color out of the thousands of people there if I went to a seminar. Or let's see, I could probably count to maybe 200 people that may have been of color out of 10,000, right? So there's always that diversity piece missing that I always thought was weird. And my experience straight out of college was not great. And I have stories that would make you cry, and I don't want to cry today. So I'm not going to tell you those stories. But to summarize it all, I was not treated the same way as my colleagues when I was in my first position out of college. And I tried everything. I talked to HR, but that never helped. So I kind of just didn't have that support. So I'm hoping that through my work with Diversify Retail, I can prevent these experiences from other people of color, and also just help us to all come together and really build the future of what this industry should look like. And 2020, I'm asked a lot, how would I describe 2020? And I'd ask you the same question if you want to put it in the chat. How would you describe 2020? For me, I would describe it as an awakening. And I say that because for many reasons, a lot of businesses got an awakening to how they weren't managing their numbers great, right? So when Corona first hit, there were so many companies that went under immediately, which you'd ask yourself, well, how is their cash flow being managed, or was it being managed, right? And so it just really awakened people to the fact that a lot of us were operating heads down, not really looking at what was going on around us in the industry, which is why so many brick and mortar stores were scrambling, and still are, to get online and be fully functional online. But omni-channel, selling in multiple channels, is something that has been around for a couple good long years and really definitely been a non-negotiable for the last couple of years. And then the other awakening, I would say, is to diversity, right? So the Black Lives Matter movement resurged in a big way internationally after the death of George Floyd. And I think it really caused people to look at the state of the Black community in America, but the state of diversity worldwide, right? And equality, and calling for equal rights. So, and now here we are after the election. I'm sure we've had another awakening, which I definitely am not going to be talking about today. So what would you say in your own words, if you want to put it in the chat? Like how would you describe 2020? Would love to know what you think. So give you a second to put that in, but I'll just keep going. So why did I create Diversify Retail? I created it because I think, when we see an issue, diversity has always been an issue in this industry, and it's not a secret. So over the summer, there were organizations that came about that were demanding for change, that were demanding for diversity numbers to be made public from the big organizations. Like, people wanted to see what their makeup was internally. So there were a lot of demands being thrown out there, right? But at some point, if we really want to see true change happen, sometimes we also have to come to the table with the solutions. So my nonprofit Diversify Retail is a solution. So as I mentioned earlier, yes, we know we need more diversity inside organizations and in product assortments, right? Well, how do we make that happen? Are we going to pull people that are in different industries and try to train them on retail and try to pull them into the industry that way? Should we pull people up from the ranks who are already in our organization and train them and really invest in them? Absolutely. But for the long-term future of the industry, to make sure we have people coming up in the pipeline, what do we need to do? We think that we need to train the younger generations. So we need to train the middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college students on this industry. I don't know about you, but to this day, when I tell people I'm a retail consultant, or when I was in college and telling people I was majoring in fashion merchandising, the next response was, oh, so you're a fashion designer? No. Oh, so you work in stores? No. people still don't know all the opportunities that this industry holds. So if we invest more in our younger generation and telling them about this and showing them successful people, they'll want to come up in the industry. So our organization has training programs, educational training programs for middle school, high school, college students, and entrepreneurs to teach them that, to teach them critical business skills, and also to take them abroad, right? So we're going to have international programming because I want the kids to not only see fashion from a US perspective, but an international perspective, because it's not a secret either that the US is behind the rest of the world as far as trends are concerned, and like years behind. So I want to broaden their horizons and deepen their fashion eye and gain true respect for this amazing industry that we're a part of. And so that's going to help with the pipeline problem. The next thing that we're going to tackle is, again, providing grants and scholarships. So once we educate these kids, we want them to know we're not only educating you, but we want to invest in you. So we want to provide scholarships to help them go to college with a retail focus. And the business owners, we want to train you. Okay, you're ready to get into a big store. You're ready to have your brand explode, right? Well, all right, what's next up? You need money. And there's a stat that less than 1% of venture capital funding goes to entrepreneurs of color. So, and I think actually that stat is for Black entrepreneurs, less than 1%. So you can see that there's a huge issue, right? So we're going to help tackle that too. So I'm just really excited to be a solution. So not demanding, not asking, but being a true partner to you and to other retail organizations and how we move this industry forward as far as diversity. And so someone commented about 2020. 2020 has been an eye-opener. It came with the good as spending time with family and focusing energy on what's important, and the bad because it's hurt so many people financially. That is so true. I think we can all say that. We've learned a lot about ourselves during this time and how much we love our spouses or partners, or maybe don't love them. So I'm often asked why I think the industry reckoning has taken so long to begin to happen. And honestly, it's never a comfortable thing to talk about a lack of diversity, right? It's just not a topic of conversation that makes people comfortable. And I think something like this had to happen to shake up the industry. I mean, first it was COVID. We all know how bad our industry is still suffering from the impact of that as we're still going through that. So, but we're all at home, right? So when George Floyd was killed, we're still at home. We were dealing with COVID, but now we have this other huge alarming issue to take care of. And I think for once, we were all in a place where we could really stop and focus on it and truly do the work of educating ourselves on, well, what exactly is the Black community going through, and what do they actually go through on a regular basis? Like looking internally at your organization, well, what does it look like? Do I have different people on my social feed that don't look like me? Do I hire people who don't look like me? You know, when I go to events, when I have my own events, am I attracting people who don't look like me? So I think it was just a really big time of looking inward and then being able to take the time to do the work to change what we don't like about what we see. And we have another question or another comment. Awesome. So 2020 has allowed me to truly step into my Blackness. Was tired of making myself feel small to compensate others' insecurity, but that mindset is slowly changing as I accept my identity. That's beautiful. Yeah, it's true. And I think the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away is that if you don't know someone who doesn't look like you, get to know somebody, and I'll be that person. I think you can find my contact information. If you never talked to or interacted with or done business with somebody who doesn't look like you, do it today. because no matter what the media tells you, no matter what the noise that you hear, it's not the same as if you talk to someone yourself, right? And I know that through this time that a lot of people, Black people will say, well, it's not my job to educate you on me, like on my history. But honestly, our history books in school don't teach us about our history, right? They only take a little sliver of the Black history experience, right? So you don't know the true struggle. You don't know what we go through every day, right? But if you ask, you will. And no textbook, no news article will be able to tell you what I've personally experienced in this industry being a Black woman, right? Just like I don't know your experience, but all it takes is a conversation. Just having an open heart and having a conversation to get to know somebody and learn about their personal experience. And it'll make your life way richer, I promise. So I want to tell you what 3 things are that you could do today to diversify your product assortment and your organization. Because again, nothing changes until we just make one step forward. So the first thing I always tell companies to do is to stop and take a look at where you are today. Look at your organization. How many people of color make up your total organization? And how many different ethnicities make up your organization? And if that isn't where it should be, make a plan to fix it, right? Get feedback. This is a really big one. Have roundtable discussions with your employees to get feedback, because it's one thing, let's say you do have a diverse organization, that's one thing. But is your organization actually welcoming and inclusive? 2 totally different things, because it doesn't matter if you have different people from all backgrounds in your organization. If they're there and they don't feel welcome and they don't feel appreciated and celebrated just the way everyone else is, then you're kind of missing the point. You're missing the target. So the first step is to really look internally at you, your organization, your employees, and see where you are. Next, then, look and see where those gaps are and allocate space to fixing those gaps. Allocate time. It's a long process. It's not going to happen overnight that you go from 0 diversity to 20%, 50% diversity. We know it's not going to happen overnight, but it takes the time, the energy, the authenticity to truly set out a plan to change that. So something that you can do also is to look at your marketing. What does that look like? Is your marketing, the people that you're using in your campaigns, is that diverse? If not, there are different organizations, agencies that cater and specifically have people of color on their roster. Reach out to them. Because the biggest thing is that if I walk into a room or come into an organization and I don't see people who look like me, to me, that's sending a sign that I'm not welcome, right? So if I look on your social media feed and I see no one that looks like me, or I come to your team, meet your team, and nobody looks like me, then that's sending a message, and you don't want to do that if that's really what you're about. So work with influencers of color who can bring that to you, to your team. And then you can work on long-term, making sure that you cover that, right, as you're working. And then one thing I will say is, so there aren't many brands of color, or at least Black-owned brands for sure, represented at major trade shows. For many reasons, the funding is one big one, but that does make it harder for retailers to find them, right? Obviously, you have to search a little harder. But if you look on Instagram, that's a really great place to find some cool new emerging brands. And so you can look at hashtags. Like, for example, I live in Atlanta. So you can look up hashtag made in ATL or made in Atlanta and find some really cool brands that are local and small. Or I believe like Black owned brands is a hashtag if you're looking for brands made by Black people, right? So I'm sure every ethnicity has their own hashtags with makers like Black makers, Black creatives. So they might not be in those traditional places because they don't have the resources or the opportunities to be there at this time. But you just have to spend a little bit more time and dig deeper to find those brands. And since they don't, again, have the access to the same education and resources, they may not be ready when you do find them. They may not be ready to work with you. Well, that's where my organization comes in. So connect them with us, and we'd be happy to train them and have a partnership with you so that we can continuously be a funnel for you when you're looking for brands to carry in your assortment. Well, we will have brands who are ready, who are aimed, equipped to serve you and to work with you. So, what do I feel is the biggest misconception about the work that needs to be done diversity wise? I think the biggest misconception about this is that it's not important or that it's not tangible. Like diversity doesn't increase the bottom line. Well, that's not true, because by you being a more diverse organization, you're able to attract more people, cast a wider net, increase your market share, which leads to more profits. So while today it might not look like that being a priority in your business is going to drive your bottom line, long term, it absolutely will. It absolutely will. I think the other misconception is that, well, if I support this, then it's going to polarize my customers, it's going to ostracize my customers. And the way I look at it is if diversity and inclusion and equality for all is a critical part of your organization, if it's what you stand for, it's what you believe in, why do you want customers and employees who don't believe that same thing? Because trust me that it will come out, right? I've had so many store experiences that were negative because of how the employees treated me because I was Black, right? But the organization as a whole, maybe the leadership team doesn't believe in that. But if all your employees aren't aligned with your beliefs and your values, then that's what happens. And then you lose customers and the cycle continues. So again, just being open and authentic and ready to listen is so, so critical, and makes a really big difference. I want to always then shift to like the good stuff. What's the light at the end of the tunnel from all of this? And I think the light at the end of the tunnel for me is just truly the fact that people are listening, right? We have the floor. We have the opportunity to change what the future of retail is going to be. Corona started it. Corona started it. Black Lives Matter increased it, heightened it. The election heightened it. So I think my light at the end of the tunnel is always that this industry is what we make of it. It truly is. And if we all work together to be the change and create the change that we want to see, we can make a difference. It doesn't matter. Anything and everything that you do matters. Having this conversation, being here for this conversation that we're having right now, it matters. Because the one thing that you do to help increase diversity in your organization tomorrow will be a ripple effect for future generations. So that's absolutely my light at the end of this tunnel, is the fact that we have the opportunity to change something, and years, centuries down the line, they'll remember us for being the catalyst of that change. And lastly, if you all would like to be involved in any way with my nonprofit organization, I would love to have you. My email is DeAnna, DeAnna, at diversifyretail.org, and I'd love to chat with you.
I'm just typing in that email right now so that everybody watching can have it. Retail.org. DeAnna at diversifyretail.org, correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. Boom. Okay, everybody. I will also have Kevin here post that into the Facebook group as well, so everybody has that email. Just read that over real quick, make sure that's all correct.
Yep, it's correct.
Okay, fantastic. DeAnna, thank you so much. That was very eye-opening and very informative. Certainly shed some light on a very important topic. And we have some great reception here from all of our attendees. So thank you very much. Awesome. I'd like to remind everybody that we do have our dashboard and virtual hangout, which is the matchmaking function that we have for the show. And sorry, I need to post this to everybody, not just the panelists. Excuse me, I need to get your email and attendees. Perfect. Okay, thank you, Kevin. So I just posted the link here to the dashboard, and that has and DeAnna, if you would like to, after the session here, jump in there. If anybody else has any more questions for DeAnna, you can jump in there and do them as well. It also serves as a matchmaking medium for anybody that's looking for products. We have our matchmaking team in and out of there, and as well as our show staff if you have any questions about the show in general. So, and then also please feel free to check out the rest of our pavilions and exhibitors. So again, thank you so much, Dia, for your time. We'll see you in the virtual hangout. We'll see everybody tomorrow for day 3 of ATSV. Take care.